Coming up on NEC-TV, we sit down with NEC's politics professor to break down the state of ice here in New Hampshire and across the U.S.
And nearly 24 clubs packed the Great Room for the Spring Connections Fair. Our reporter will tell you about some of the new clubs you may not have heard of.
Plus, it's the biggest football game of the year. The Patriots and the Seahawks are facing off for the 60th Super Bowl. We have the details for events happening right here on campus. All this and more coming up on NEC-TV. Good afternoon, and thank you for watching NEC-TV. I'm Jack Cody.
And I'm Montana Taylor. Today is Thursday, February 5th, 2026. Now on to our top story. News broke this week that a federal immigration detention center may be coming to New Hampshire.
The topic is getting attention from citizens and politicians who have been asking for transparency. In Governor Kelly Ayotte, in a statement to New Hampshire media, the governor said, "It is entirely unacceptable that the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources failed to share this information with the governor's office. We will continue to insist on transparency and communication from the Department of Homeland Security with officials in Merrimack concerning this proposed faculty."
Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also commonly known as ICE, has been the focus of protests happening around the country, including here in New Hampshire.
I sat down with Dr. Nathan Schrader to get his analysis on ICE and its impacts in New Hampshire. Thank you for joining us in studio. Can you explain to us the state of ICE right now in the U.S.?
Well, right now, one of the top issues in the United States, and it doesn't matter where you are in the country, is the current controversy over both the governmental entity, enforcement agency, ICE, but and the operations that they're carrying out. We're seeing all through the country protests being held in different counties, cities, towns, and states regarding the tactics being used, the measures that ICE is taking in terms of the way it's rounding up potential suspects for deportation or for perhaps detention followed by deportation. And so ICE is not a new entity, right? It falls under the Department of Homeland Security. But one of the things that has changed immensely in the past several months since the second Trump administration has taken shape is the way in which it's being utilized. We can look statistically that there were far more deportations that occurred under prior presidents, Bush, Obama, even under President Biden, that have occurred so far under President Trump. The difference is the methods and mechanisms that are being used. One of the things that we've discovered, and the Financial Times has some data on this that was published last week, that more people are currently being rounded up and detained who do not have criminal records. And this is one of the major points of differentiation between the way ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, was doing its job prior to Trump, this second Trump term, and the current Trump term. Is they're less discriminate. They're willing to round up and detain people even who have no criminal records, and we've seen some high-profile cases, such as the elderly man in Minnesota who was pulled out of his house in sub-zero temperatures in his pajamas and hauled away, but then only be a few days later released because it turned out there's absolutely no case. He was here legally. So it's a matter. Part of this is what's swirling around is because of the methods and the mission have changed.
Gotcha. In the past, ICE wasn't as prominent and heard of. Mm-hmm. Why is it so prominent today? What's making it so well known?
Well, so ICE has been around for a while, right? And they've been, their operations have always had some controversy to them, but not to the degree where it's inspiring protest movements around the country. And in part is because the way that the Trump administration, because ICE falls under the executive branch of government. It's within the Department of Homeland Security, which is a cabinet level agency. So what's happening right now is the president made a promise when he was running for president in 2024, and then upon his inauguration, that he intended to carry out what he called, in his own words, sort of an administration that was focused on retribution. And part of that retribution was going to be against people he believed were either here illegally or shouldn't be here at all. And that's why we've seen the administration announce prohibitions on over 65, I believe over 70 countries now, of visas being issued for people who were allowed to travel to the United States from those places. That's totally separate from what we're seeing with the ICE question, but the president promised, and so that's why no one should be completely surprised at what he's instructing ICE to do and his department is instructing ICE to do, is because when he he was running and when he was elected, he promised he will get retribution for the things that he thought were going wrong in the country and against certain people by targeting other groups of people, thus the current ICE controversy.
Gotcha, okay. In New Hampshire, we've seen protests, but what has the response been from politicians and citizens in New Hampshire?
It's been a mix. So let me start with the politicians. New Hampshire has a majority, Republican majority in the state house and the state senate, and a Republican governor. That response has ranged anywhere from silence in really saying nothing about what ICE is doing right now under the Trump administration to outright praise for what they're doing, asking some members of the New Hampshire legislature even asking for them to do more than they're doing now. Public opinion in the United States, I think, closely mirrors what public opinion is in New Hampshire here. President Trump has only a 37% approval rating nationally, according to Pew Research. According to data from New Hampshire, it's even lower, it's 32%. One of the things driving that approval rating down, both nationally and here in New Hampshire, is that Granite State voters, I believe, are largely uncomfortable with this. Especially the fact that right now ICE is operating outside of what we see as normal protocols for enforcement agencies. They're not following the standards. They're acting without warrants to break in doors and search homes or to search and seize vehicles. And we had the murders of several citizens in the course of ICE's operation. So those things are very high profile and they draw attention to this situation. And Americans, including Granite Staters, look at this and they realize I might not be an expert in everything about law enforcement, but I know what we're seeing here with the violation of, say, Fourth Amendment due process rights and the violence being inflicted on certain communities, particularly communities of color, is not really something that most Americans are comfortable with. And we see that in the data reflecting in polling. But I'll say the other thing about New Hampshire, even though we've not seen, there have been reports of ICE being active in New Hampshire, not to the extent in which they were in Maine or what we've seen in places like the Twin Cities in Minnesota, but it was still enough to draw out thousands of Granite Staters to rallies and protests around the state on Saturday, and I believe there was a vigil at the State House on Friday. But if we want to measure just based on people being out and rallying against this, there's certainly signs of anger here in the Granite State.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for talking with us today, Professor Schrader.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Back to you.
NEC's women's hockey team took on a tough nationally ranked conference opponent both Friday and Saturday night. Let's go to NEC-TV's Lawrence Hall for an update on the weekend.
Thanks, guys. I'm here at the Lee Clement Arena as the women's ice hockey team took on the nationally ranked cadets of Norwich University for 2 games over the weekend. It was a tough weekend for the women's ice hockey team, playing a back-to-back against the number 6 in the nation, Cadets. The Cadets took both wins this weekend, defeating the Grims 14-1 Friday and 11-0 Saturday. Despite the losses, the students turned out to support their Grims.
I enjoy coming to the games because I think it's fun to support my friends who are on the team, but also support the Grims, no matter what sport they're playing or what season it is.
A lot of the girls on the team are my friends, and I love just being able to come and cheer them on and just be a supporter as much as I can.
The women's hockey team is 5-15 overall and 4-10 in conference. They exclusively have conference games remaining in their schedule. The Grims are back in action for 2 games next weekend at Plymouth State University. In Henniker for NEC-TV, I'm Lauren Hall.
NEC has a lot of clubs, including several new ones. The Spring Connections Fair held this week in the Simon Great Room welcomed students to explore what groups exist on campus. NEC-TV's Soup Subitsky gets a scoop on some clubs you may have never heard of and what makes them interesting.
Student clubs are meeting every day of the week, and with nearly 24 different groups, there's a little something for everyone. The Paintball Club is new to campus, but has an interesting tie to Henniker.
Actually, paintball was founded in Henniker, and not a lot of people know about that. So it was kind of just also to educate people.
Women's rugby meets every weekend, and Bella Burkhart says it's more than just tackling.
The main focus is definitely to build a sense of community, not only play our sport that we love to play, but introduce it to new people and definitely have like a built-in family.
The SOA Art Club is involved with murals and is open to anyone.
So we
make opportunities to make art on campus.
If you are looking to try something new, the theater club can help build your stage presence.
So our club is theater club, as you can see. We basically try to get people out of their comfort zone.
When it comes to the photo club, there is nothing they don't do.
This is the photo club, and we do anything and everything photography related.
Sophia Lapointe says there is more to track than just running.
I think students would benefit in a lot of different ways. Definitely forming healthy habits, like exercising our bodies both in and out of the weight room, on the track.
The gardening club is hoping to repair the greenhouse and has big plans for the future.
Grow plants, learn about plants, and hopefully eventually grow some food that we can donate to charities in the area.
Students involved with Teach are planning to work with local schools.
We're trying to come up with some fun ideas to get the community more involved and appreciative of teachers.
Students looking to start a new club should speak to the Office of Student Engagement. For NEC-TV, I'm Sue Sabitsky.
NEC's Wellness Center is planning a vaccine clinic next week.
Shaw's Pharmacy will be in the Simon Great Room on Tuesday, February 10th from 10 to 2 p.m. Flu and meningitis B vaccines will be available to students, staff, faculty, and the public.
This comes as the CDC reports New Hampshire has some of the highest flu rates in the country. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in your email to sign up.
The Red Cross is hosting a blood drive on campus next week. It runs Wednesday, February 11th from 10 to 2:30 in the Great Room. Organizers say there is one open appointment. To sign up, scan the QR code in your email. They may welcome walk-ins if there are enough staff. Tomorrow is National Wear Red Day. The American Heart Association celebrates February as American Heart Health Month.
Wearing red shows supports and brings awareness. Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women.
The theater department is starting off the semester with something new. Montana Taylor spoke with Bodie Robinson to find and discuss the upcoming shows.
No, this is actually something new that Colleen's trying out. We always usually do a full 2.5-hour show sometimes. So I've done this in the past at my old school. This is what we would call Pyro Playfest, where we've had 10 plus multiple shows thrown together. So you get the opportunity to act, direct, stage management. It gives you a wide variety of jobs that you could do. It's really beneficial to theater majors, because they get to do more than one thing.
The Spring 2025 Dean's listed out and is recognizing hundreds of students. 384 NEC students are on the new list. To be included on the Dean's list, you must earn a minimum of 12 graded credits with a GPA of 3.5. To see the full list, visit nec.edu/news/fall 2025 Dean's List. Coming up after the break, the Olympics are just ahead. Find out which athlete will be competing in spite of a recent injury.
And find out what NEC has planned as the college celebrates its 80th year. Renowned filmmaker and New Hampshire native Ken Burns is weighing in on the importance of the First-in-Nation primary staying in the Granite State. According to WMUR-TV, Burns sent a letter to the Democratic National Committee supporting the current calendar, keeping New Hampshire first in the voting process. State Democratic Party Chair Ray Buckley is grateful for the support, saying Burns has such a connection to Americans. According to the press, journalist Don Lemon has been charged with federal civic rights crimes for his coverage of anti-immigration enforcement protests that interrupted a church service in Minnesota where a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement official is a pastor. Lemon was arrested in Los Angeles, and a second independent journalist was arrested in Minnesota. Lemon released a statement saying that the free media is important to hold these in power accountable.
A newer state law that ended vehicle inspections by the end of 2025 is being blocked by a recent federal court. The judge is concerned about how the state will comply with the Clean Air Act without enforcing yearly inspections. While the state and lawmakers figure it out, New Hampshire's Department of Safety says inspection enforcement is suspended until April 10th. American alpine skier Lindsey Vonn is planning to race in the Olympics despite a tough injury. Vonn says she ruptured her ACL in a crash last week in Switzerland, but says the Olympic dream is not over. The 41-year-old is expected to be one of the biggest stars of the Winter Games. Her first race is Sunday. Super Bowl 60 ticket prices are, as you might expect, very expensive. According to the USA Today, the cheapest ticket is just below $5,000. The average ticket costs between $8,000 and $10,000, which makes it pretty challenging for a regular fan to be able to make it to the Super Bowl. SeatGeek says the most expensive recent Super Bowl ticket averages more than $12,000 in Las Vegas in 2024.
Here at NEC, the pub will be hosting a Super Bowl watch party starting at 6 p.m., just ahead of the 6:30 kickoff. There will be dollar drafts and wings. For more information, contact the Office of Student Engagement or check out the email from OSE. Up next, the weekly sports update. Find out which athletes are Pilgrims of the Week.
And graduation is sneaking up on us. Stay tuned for NEC-TV's Countdown to Graduation. Stay with us, we'll be right back. The Grims had an action-packed week of sports. Men's wrestler Joey Bulldog and men's hockey player Igor Ospik took home the Grims of the Week.
Let's go to NEC's Jack Lombardo for more on what happened this week in NEC athletics.
Week of athletics. Leading off with the men's hockey team, the boys went 1-1 on the week as they faced Keene State in an overtime thriller, winning the game 7-6. They followed up the next day at Western Connecticut State and took a 2-3 loss. Sophomore forward Igor Osipik was named the Little East Conference Co-Player of the Week. He was also one of this week's Grims of the Week. Osipik scored a career-high 4 points in the game with 3 assists while also netting the overtime game winner versus Keene State. The men's and women's basketball teams went on a combined 1-4 on the week. They each lost to Dean College, while the women's ended up picking up a win against Elms College, while the men suffered another tough loss. The men's wrestling team struggled this week, while the Pilgrim of the Week, Joey Bulldog, shined. Bulldog, alongside Dom Ganji, Michael Folio, and Tanner Kamuda, all picked up wins on the day. The boys went 0-3 in a quad match hosted by Worcester Polytechnic. NEC ski team competed at Castleton Carnival. Sophomore Lorelei Holloway had the best finish rank, coming in 53rd place on day 2. The ski team competes again on Saturday at Pat's Peak.
NEC is celebrating its 80th year with a series of events. On February 9th, NEC Takes Over the Peak welcomes current students and alumni from 2 to 6. February 20th is NEC's Big Block of Cheese Day. On March 7th, there's an alumni gathering in Florida. March 19th, alumni will gather in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And on April 25th, there will be an alumni reception in New York. All events can be registered via the alumni Facebook page. The final 80th celebration event is commencement on May 2nd.
There are just 86 days until the class of 2026 will walk across the stage at this year's commencement ceremony. Graduates must order caps and gowns via the emailed link. Orders must be placed by March 13th.
An announcement sent to seniors that is warning that another local college is holding commencement on the same weekend and hotel accommodations should be made as soon as possible. Before we sign off, we want to share what stories we're working on for the next week's show. President Wayne Lesperance is planning to join us for a studio interview.
And keep an eye out for NEC reporters as NEC Takes Over the Peak Monday. Always a fun story to cover. Who knows? You might see me on a tube.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at NEC.TV for the latest NEC news.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you right back here next week for all things NEC from the only Hennecker on Earth.